Once upon a time, in a little fishing village on the edge of a frozen lake, sat a small wooden shack. Inside lived a young girl named Elena and her grandmother. They were as poor as church mice, but what they lacked in money, they made up for in love and hope. Every day, Elena would walk to the nearby bridge and play her old cracked violin for the sparse coins of townspeople passing by. Though most didn't even stop, she didn't mind. For Elena, playing the violin wasn't about the money, it was about sharing her music. Each note she played carried the sorrow of a girl who lost her parents, and the joy of a young soul trying to help her grandmother. One evening, a heavy snow began to fall. It piled high on the roofs and drifted across the frozen lake. As night fell, Elena walked to the bridge, pulled her shawl tighter, and began to play. The cold made her fingers stiff, and the melody she played was broken and slow. Suddenly, a tall man with a thick scarf stopped by the bridge. He listened intently to her music, his eyes full of understanding. When she finished, instead of reaching for money, he took off his scarf, wrapped it around her violin, and handed it to her. "I think your music deserves a proper voice," he said kindly. Startled by his unexpected gift, Elena looked up at the man. "But I don't deserve this," she whispered, tears freezing on her cheeks. "Nonsense," the man said with a smile. "You have a beautiful gift, child. Don't waste it." And with that, he disappeared into the falling snow. Huddled by the bridge, Elena held the new violin close. It was warm and smooth, a stark contrast to the old one. Taking a deep breath, she began to play. The melody flowed from her fingertips, richer and warmer than before. The notes soared and danced, impossible to ignore. Soon, people began to gather around her, drawn in by her beautiful music. A kind woman in the crowd noticed Elena's old shoes and patched shawl. "My dear child, you shouldn't be playing here in this weather," she said, offering her a warm loaf of bread. Touched by the woman's kindness, Elena smiled shyly and continued playing. Word of her gift spread through the town like wildfire. Before long, she was invited to play at the city's grand theater. On the night of the performance, Elena put on her best dress and, at her grandmother's insistence, wore her patched shawl over her shoulders. As she walked onto the stage, the audience fell silent. Taking a deep breath, she began to play. Her music told the story of a young girl, her struggles, her hopes and dreams. The audience was captivated. They listened intently, hanging on to every note. When she finished, the theater erupted into thunderous applause. People stood up, cheering and shouting for more. From that day on, Elena became famous. People traveled from far and wide to hear her play. She performed in grand halls and palaces, meeting important people and living a life she never imagined possible. Through it all, she remained humble. She used her wealth and influence to help others, rebuilding her grandmother's house and opening a free music school for children who, like her, had nothing but their dreams. As the years passed, Elena's music continued to touch people's hearts. She became known not just as a brilliant violinist, but as a generous soul who used her gift to bring joy to others. And whenever she saw a young musician struggling to make their voice heard, she remembered the little girl playing under the bridge and offered them a helping hand, ensuring that their music, like hers, would one day fill concert halls and bring happiness to countless people. The old wooden shack where Elena and her grandmother lived might have been in a poor fishing village, but its roof was no longer leaky, its walls no longer bare, and inside, a brand new piano gleamed in the corner, a silent promise of music and dreams taking flight. And that's the story of the violin under the bridge. If you like this story and want more, I will really appreciate if you share, like, and subscribe. See you again next time.